Welcome to The Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything from the Pistons to the NBA draft and the Motor City Cruise.
And of course, guys, as always, if you are tuning in with us live, one, we appreciate that, obviously, but two, leave a like, subscribe, all that usual stuff on YouTube or on Facebook. We are on Facebook as well under the Detroit Bad Boys Facebook page, so if you're tuning in there, welcome. And obviously, too, if you're listening on a podcast, leave a review, leave a like, all that. All this stuff really does help us grow. I know it's kind of cliche a little bit, but it is helpful when we do really appreciate it.
Yeah, you got to do it. We're pretty bad about remembering to do that, so gotta remember. And yeah, I didn't realize listening to podcasts myself until being on here how much it helps. So yeah, appreciate everyone for helping us out.
And YouTube user mentioning that my mic is a little bit quiet. I just adjusted sub settings, so hopefully that works. If not, we may just have to deal with it. Hopefully I'm coming through okay. We'll work it out on podcast. You know, we got all this post editing. It's just the live stuff that suffers.
Yeah, you sound good to me, but it might be me too. My mic is being weird. We were just talking before we went on. If I just like tap my cord slightly, the mic gets disconnected. So after we're done recording, I'm hopping on Amazon and buying a new cord because things can get finicky. But yeah, oh nice, YouTube user said it's better, so all good. And yeah, appreciate everyone dealing with the things that can come up on any given day.
And there you have it, guys, because now if you're listening on podcast and I monologue for what feels like a very long time, there's a non-zero chance that Blake just knocked out his cord for his earbuds, and I'm waiting for him to fix it. We've gotten pretty good at that over the year and whatever change that we've been doing this podcast now. It's definitely noticeable on the live streams, but if you're on podcast, I'd wager we're pretty good at hiding it these days.
Yeah, and I'm doing everything I can to stay away from this cord because like it came undone somehow, just like if you just brush by it like 3 or 4 times before he hopped on. So I'm staying away, so hopefully we're all good. But yeah, if Wes is riffing about something, that's probably what happened.
If any listener wants to send Blake some wireless earbuds, we'll get you the address.
I need to figure out how to connect mine to the microphone because I have some. I just haven't done that yet.
So it's tech support that you need. Okay, got it.
Yeah, user error.
All right, well, let's talk some Pistons because we've had 3 pretty fun and exciting games. Pistons have gone 2-1. We're finally recording after a win here. We've kind of broken our streak of bad luck, but you got a game against the Suns, 125-121 that the Pistons lost. Honestly, game was a little bit closer in final score than it actually was during the game, but regardless, they do go on. They beat the Rockets by 11 points, 107-96, and then they beat the Atlanta Hawks, which is kind of the opposite of that Suns game. It was 114-104, but that was not that close. The Hawks got to do a little run there at the end as the Pistons were coasting, just did not even want to put up a shot for the last minute and a half of game action. So we did get quite a bit of comments and questions here submitted ahead of time. And of course, if you're watching in the live chat, send in those questions as well. We'll get to those too. But with the past, week or so of Pistons basketball, Blake, where do you want to start? What stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I was happy to see the group bounce back. Going into a tough stretch of games after that Suns loss, you drop a couple games, get back to 500, and they bounce back, get back over 500, and then win another one in a row. And just the games themselves, specifically with the wins, I feel like, I mean, you just got to talk about Cade Cunningham. Like pretty much outside of maybe the past week, maybe like Kevin Durant in that game, Cade has just felt like the best player on the floor at all times when he has some pretty good players on the other side of the ball too. Like he's just like controlling things. Yes, it can go in and out sometimes, but like he's good for at least one takeover stretch per game, it feels like, and he's just playing on another planet right now. The all-star starters were released this week, and Cade wasn't one of the guards, which I'm not shocked with. I'm almost for certain he'll get in as a reserve with the coaches vote. But yeah, he's just like playing on another planet right now. So I feel like just any Pistons conversation, although there's a lot to talk about right now, it just has to start with Cade Cunningham because that guy is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's been insane to watch, especially these past two games against the Rockets and the Hawks. I mean, there have been Luka Doncic comparisons for Cade Cunningham since he was at Oklahoma State. And, I think both of us have kind of hesitated with some of that because Luka is an unreal talent. And not only is he unreal now, but he was this level or nearly this level of good very early on in his career. And that's just such a hard standard to live up to. But man, these past two games, it's Cade Cunningham is looking Luka-like. And it seems like it's happening more and more every single night, every single game. There's no words. I have no words for it. It's just incredible to watch, like you said.
Yeah, he's just able to like pick really just do what he wants at certain times. And like it's just crazy with the amount of pressure he gets too. Like every opponent, their game plan is focused on trying to limit Cade, and like teams just aren't really able to do that right now. I mean, does some of the ball pressure result in turnovers? Yes, I'm not sure if we're going to get into that discussion, but even though he had a ton of turnovers the past two games, I thought a lot of them were very inconsequential. And I think he has been taking just some more gambles, I guess, with like trying to fit passes through tight lanes. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And like some of those, like I'm okay with at times. Obviously want to limit turnovers, but that I haven't seen a ton of like sloppy, careless one. There are some, but most of them to me are just taking gambles, and that's what you want the guy that is the star of your team, like your engine, to do. And he's just able to put pressure on the rim and in his own way find ways to score, create for his teammates. And like sometimes the shot falls, sometimes it doesn't, but when he starts cooking, like he's really cooking. And I don't know that there are many players in the league like playing on the level that he is right now.
It feels kind of weird to say this because he was extremely good last season as well. And honestly, he was a very, very good rookie too. So it's not like, he was a young player who was really struggling and now is just kind of figuring it out. And that is usually the context that you'll hear conversation of what I'm about to say. But I do still think it applies. This feels like a situation where it's really slowing down for Cade. Like the game seems to really, really be slowing down for him. And what's incredible is that he was already a very good player. He's already an incredibly high IQ and feel-based player, rhythm-based player. And then now you're seeing what happens when you take those kind of factors and you have the game slow down for the player. Like the game against the Hawks where he drives to the middle off of a pick and roll. He kind of gets a defender in jail, bumps him, and throws up a hook shot, alley-oop pass out of nowhere from the free throw line. He's doing stuff like that more, though, now. Like, now we're getting the flashy stuff, too, which, I mean, he didn't even really do flashy stuff like this in college, if I'm being honest, going back to that tape. Like, this is one of those rare instances where players, supremely talented, incredibly high IQ, and then all of a sudden everything just clicks. And we're getting to watch that now.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because I think it's a mixture too of just like the acquisitions and moves that Trajan Langdon has come in here and made that really bring in guys who help out Cade or are there to bail him out, make some shots, like finally get those moves. Because I feel like everyone that has been paying attention to this team since Cade has been in the NBA, like knows the kind of player that he was, and just a lot of other people who follow the NBA at large or follow other teams weren't watching Cade up close so every so often just because they had no reason to. And now that he has a more complementary team around him, and that is happening at the same time as he's taking that upward trajectory and that next step, and the game slowing down, like you mentioned, like it just seems like it's all happening at the right time. Is this the year where everything goes like full throttle and really just who knows where this team will go? Like, I don't know. I think they can do some interesting things, which I wasn't expecting to say before the start of the season. But I just think like Cade's a special kind of player that just he's only getting better and better. And when you put him in a better team context, like you really saw what that did for him.
And Mark brings up a good point here. He says that Cade knows he's the guy now, and he's got the confidence and ability to show it. I think that's another really good point too, because this is year 4 for Cade. Not only are things slowing down, not only is skill wise has he improved over the course of the past 4 years, but he knows who he is. He knows what his role is, and he knows what he has to do, and he's got confidence in his ability to perform that function. So yeah, it's just all these things coming together, like you said, and it's incredible to watch. One last thing I wanted to touch on before we get into the questions: Ausar Thompson, the past 2 games, not as much against the Suns, but definitely the past 2 games, specifically against the Atlanta Hawks. I think that is the best he has played defensively all season. Against the Atlanta, this actually got kind of blown up on Twitter a little bit. I think maybe Keith Smith might have been the one to tweet it, but there were multiple possessions like this where Ausar Thompson, for about 20 seconds of the shot clock, guarded everybody. He was everywhere. There was no getting away from Ausar. He was ever present, and he just ruined the offensive possession for the Hawks.
Yeah. That clip that was going around was so fun. But yeah, I've enjoyed watching him, and I mean it was fun watching him play against his brother too. And Wes, you posted about it, how it really like stands out in those contexts, how they really are different players, which is so true, and it's hard to separate yourself from that. Like you saw how like Amen was creating for himself and had a good game against the Pistons, and Ausar is more of the like finisher, defend. And I mean, the one thing, I don't know if this is news, but the past couple games haven't given me any optimism that his shot is going to come along by any means. But yeah, he's defending at a much better level than what we saw, and obviously have to consider him having a slow start, like not coming back until a little bit into the year. But yeah, I think he's been good, and since Ivey went down, it's a big ask to have him jump into the starting lineup. And all the talk that we've had about the Ausar and Jalen Duren lineups, I think it's just how things are clicking right now. It's made that stick out less. I still think it is a problem long term, but just what Ausar brings, it kind of offsets some of the concerns you have with Duren sometimes, even though neither of them can shoot. And then when Ausar goes off, you have Isaiah Stewart and coming on from the second unit, who has just been like incredible defensively. So it's sort of a nice mix and match, even though there are some holes. This is like a young team. But yeah, Ausar's been fun to watch. And I mean, 7 for 9 from the field against the Hawks, and one of those was a 3 that he missed badly. Like, that's a really solid game.
Yeah, the spacing thing, the primary concern there is obviously Cade, right? And I do think that the problem hasn't gone away, but Cade's really making his shots these past 2 nights, which is going to happen. So cool with that, whatever. But the one thing that I think the Rockets did with Amen that I really wish we'd get to see more with Ausar is pick and roll, with the Thompson twin being the screen setter. Too often it feels like to me the Pistons are getting into situations where Jalen Duren is off in the short corner and Ausar Thompson's kind of on top of him, but on the elbow on that same side. They've lined up like this. I don't know if it's on purpose. Maybe one of them is cutting into a space that they shouldn't more often than not. Like I don't exactly know the context there, but I do know that it continues to happen, especially when you have a strong side pick and roll action going to the baseline for some reason. Regardless, I wish that would stop. So perhaps something that you could do is to pull Ausar and have him be the screen setter instead of doing more of the dribble handoff stuff between the guards. That might be interesting to watch. And when Jalen Green and Amen worked their pick and roll I think 2 or 3 times that they did it against the Pistons, I think it looked really good both times. I mean, Ausar Thompson, he's a very good reader of the floor. He's not a great active dribble passer, but if you get him the ball as as in the short roll where he can kind of set his feet and read, I think he'd be really good at that. So that is something that I do wish we could see a little bit more.
Yeah, and I mean, YouTube user brings it up with it. Just spacing is probably weird with Duren on the floor as well. Like, I don't think. I mean, who knows what JB thinks long term? I'd be interested to hear his thoughts on like Ausar and Duren playing together specifically. But I feel like it's just not the ideal lineup moving forward, and it's being forced into it right now with Ivey going down and wanting to keep Malik Beasley on the bench as your guy who can knock down shots off the bench, and want to keep Isaiah Stewart there as well, just from the energy brings and the rim protection and defensive power he has with when you have Ausar in the starting lineup too. So I don't think, like, maybe those concerns will be minimized, or we'll see Ausar used in a different way if he isn't playing next to Jalen Duren so much because of the current situation with the team.
Mimsy 313 brings up a good idea, which is actually something that Bryce has brought up a couple of times on the Pistons Pulse, but that's DHOs. Have Ausar just do 1 million DHOs. Maybe it's not actually that simple, but I do think that it would work at least every now and then. Because if you sag off the DHO, if you're guarding Ausar and Cade comes off the top or Tim Hardaway Jr. comes off the top, that's a 3, right? You know, that's a lot of space. At least once or twice. I think that could be interesting to look at. All right, let's dive into some of the questions here. This first one this is from Augie28 in the DBB comments. Sorry, it took me a second to find it there. Augie28 in the DBB comments says, do you think that JB Bickerstaff is maybe a little bit emotional with his coach's challenges? Like, he gets into the heat of the moment and he challenges something that maybe he shouldn't have.
Yeah, I think Augie brought up the challenge in the Hawks game where Cade like grabbed Trae Young's jersey. I think it was Cade at least. And there was that challenge. I'm interested to hear what you think, Wes, because I haven't noticed this in particular. I mean, maybe sometimes you could disagree and think maybe you save the challenge or just don't worry about an inconsequential call. But I mean, I've definitely I think the Pistons have a challenge guy that tells JB yes or no, and obviously JB's the final decision maker, but I think they've been pretty good at least taking that time. So I don't know. This hasn't really stood out to me. I might start to pay attention to it a little bit more. But overall, I think there is someone like on the bench telling JB like do it or no, let's wait on this one.
Yeah, there is. I believe anyway that every coaching staff does have a designated like assistant coach that just kind of watches the replay and tries to give the head coach an idea of what to do. I will say, like, any time that I've noticed that there's maybe been I don't know if bad is the right word for it, but maybe a more questionable challenge where you think the odds of the call being overturned isn't all that high. It seems to me that the majority of times that those happen, it's more like, like Tobias Harris doing the replay signal very adamantly from the court, or Cade sprinting back to JB Bickerstaff and trying to plead his case to have him do it. Like, it seems more like in those moments that maybe he's just responding to his players a little bit more. And you can't do that every time, but he doesn't do that every time. I believe if you go look, I would wager that the track record that JB Bickerstaff has on challenges this season is actually pretty good, at least around the average for NBA coaches this year. So you can't, defer to the player every single time. The player doesn't know all the time if they did or didn't do it. But if one of your team leaders is really adamant, like Cade, Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley on occasion too, like those guys, sometimes it makes sense to throw them a bone. And hey, maybe it actually gets overturned and you're happy with it. Maybe it doesn't, and then you can go back and say, hey, Cade, like, don't do that again, right? Don't come complaining to me to challenge the call when we're going to lose. So it kind of can go both ways, and it's a dialogue in that way. But I wouldn't say that it's Bickerstaff being emotional. I kind of think he's just throwing his guys a bone.
Yeah, and I just I looked this up quickly. Mark Dagnall and Kenny Atkinson are tied for. Oh wait, no, this is who's won the most coaches challenges this season. I wanted to see if there was like a stat, because I'm sure someone is like tracking this somewhere, and I think it's Mark Dagnall. I would need to go in more. And JB, yeah, I'm not going to live spit stats in case anything's wrong, but I'd be interested to see where those are checking, because I remember during the WNBA season, there was like a coach that was spot on like 100%, and it was so out of the order. And the talk around that was it is like a bench person. So yeah, Wes, you're right. There are like the team dynamic things where trust the player sometimes, but can't do it every time. So yeah, we got to go back and find some of this coaches challenge data.
I believe that Kelser and Blaha mentioned on the broadcast one night. I can't remember exactly which game this was, but I believe Tobias Harris has a pretty solid track record. That guy does not complain all that often, and if he's like adamant, like he usually gets JB to pull the trigger on a challenge. More often than not. There was a recent game where he was, and Bickerstaff rightly told him, no, that was a foul. But anyway, yeah, I do think it's more team dynamic, like you said, than anything else. This is an interesting one. This is from a guy, YouTube user, in the live comments, says that he's seen a lot of talk about trades, buying or selling, potentially messing up team chemistry. And obviously right now the Pistons are playing really well, and in no small part likely because of that chemistry that they've built in that locker room. So he wants to know, do you believe that a trade might actually hurt the team because of that team chemistry and that they have been overachieving?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's like, do you want to fix what's not broken? I think that there's definitely a case to stand pat and just see how it goes. Your team is overachieving. You don't want to throw too big of a monkey wrench into it. Like, I get that, but I just also think that there are clear avenues that this roster can benefit from. It was a long way to go coming into the season, and things are going great right now. Most of the different pieces are complementing each other really well, but just especially with the injury to Ivey, I think you go and find some sort of backup guard who can at least take some like on ball and initiation pressure off a Marcus Sasser in the second unit, who's not playing in his maybe most native role right now. So I think it would have to be around the margins. Like, I'd be shocked if a culture piece like Isaiah Stewart or Malik Beasley was traded at the trade deadline. When there were cases for those guys to get traded if the team wasn't doing good this season, and especially with Beasley on an expiring deal. So I'm I'm with the idea of not changing up a ton, because it seems like the chemistry for this group is through the roof and wouldn't want to mess with that. But I think there are ways to make the roster better, which you definitely should keep in mind. And to do that, you probably have to part with some players. Just hopefully it's not one of your culture pieces. Like, I'm pretty sure that Trajan won't give up someone that he knows is huge for this locker room right now.
This question is why I don't envy NBA GMs or player personnel presidents or whatever the actual title is, because the problem is twofold, right? The Pistons are overachieving. They're looking pretty good right now. They're not a contender. So there's room to go up, right? There's room to improve this roster. And the mere fact that the roster right now is overachieving and they're about 500, a little bit over, means that you could certainly add talent to this roster, right? The opposite end of that is that, you look at someone like Malik Beasley. You brought it up. He's a great culture fit for this team. And I think him, Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr. have had a noticeable impact just in terms of veteran leadership, right? For this roster, this super young roster. Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. might be gone next year.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Are you going to bring them back? I know a lot of us fans, me included, and I think you included, would love to bring Malik Beasley back. But what if he wants too much? Would you have to pay him $35 million in salary to bring him back? That'd be a ridiculously high number, but I'm doing that to prove a point, right? There's a number that's too much for Malik Beasley, even if you want to keep him. There's a number that's too much to keep Tim Hardaway Jr., and it's probably significantly lower just given his age and his performance to date. Like, you've got Tobias Harris too. Like I said, he's made a really, really big impact. If you want to go and get like a massive contract, right? Say you did want to add like Bradley Beal as the third team in that Jimmy Butler thing. Let's say you did want to do that. Bradley Beal's making $50 million. You would have to include at a minimum Tobias Harris and probably Tim Hardaway Jr. to pull that off. Like, now that's two really important leadership pieces from the locker room that are gone. And maybe Bradley Beal isn't the right answer, because you could make a debate about, is that actually an upgrade or not? But my point is that the challenging thing to weigh is that many of those veterans, including a guy like B-Ball Paul, whom MC313 brings up in the chat, like, that have been really valuable to this locker room and have played really important roles both on the court and off it, that are just not going to be here next year. Probably won't be here next year. And you need to upgrade the roster too. So what do you do? Right? What is the right answer? Do you sacrifice your team chemistry now and move a guy like Malik Beasley because you don't think you're going to get him on a reasonable deal this summer, and then you bring in someone back or maybe draft capital back? Like, what does that do to the locker room? What does that do to this season, especially if it's not a player upgrade? If you want to go and make a bigger contract move, like, now you're packaging multiple of these guys. What is that going to do for the locker room and the chemistry and the way that this ship is sailing right now through these smooth waters? Like, it's just an impossible question. I think it's an impossible question. I don't envy Trajan Langdon at all right now. I don't have a good answer for it.
Yeah. And where the team stands right now, it just makes it so much harder, because it's a real question now. Like, if you are not certain that you're going to be able to bring back Malik Beasley next season, then you should probably think about moving him. But what will this team look like without just the player he is on the basketball court and everything he brings to this group? Like, you won't have the guy who's made like the most 3-pointers in the NBA this year off your bench, who can win you games at times and is also like huge for the locker room too. So it's a great point that it's such a difficult it's such a difficult call. I'd be really surprised at this point if like Malik Beasley was dealt. I mean, I don't know if any teams would want Tim Hardaway's expiring. Like, we'll see with that. I mean, I think the one name, honestly, and he's been playing a little bit better as of late, is Fontecchio. But we'll see. Like, he signed a 2-year deal. It's really small. Yep, the Italian symbol. So yeah, that's a interesting one. I'm sure there will be some move, but I feel like it won't ruffle too many feathers or be a huge like push your chips into the middle of the table for a big number player kind of deal.
Yeah, and I think the real answer to this question is information that you, me, anyone listening to this podcast don't know.
Yeah.
Because you would want to know the character, the soft skills, the intangibles of everybody in the locker room currently, and anybody you'd be looking at bringing in, so that if you do lose a Tim Hardaway Jr., but say you are able to upgrade at the position, right? You wouldn't want to do that if it was going to be not a culture fit in the locker room. That stuff does really matter, and I think that we're witnessing how much that matters right now with this team's success. So you'd want to know all of that stuff about all these player personalities. And then at some point, I guess you got to have confidence in JB Bickerstaff and Cade Cunningham and whichever guys, team pillars that you keep around to steady the ship once it gets rocked, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And of course we can't know any of that. So I don't envy Trajan. I know I said that. I don't envy him at all. Let's stick on this subject though for a second and answer the unanswerable. Gregory 1988 says, what would be one move you would want to make at the trade deadline if you were the GM? So, don't have to name players specifically if you don't want to, but what's one move or maybe a strategy that you'd employ?
Yeah. So, I mean, my first move would definitely be after what we were just talking about. Like, do you want to change up a ton based on how this group is playing right now? I would see if there's a way that you can use your open cap room and your open roster spot to bring in some additional draft capital. So that would be, I guess, my priority number one at the trade deadline. Just see the market out there for what we can do with that. And if we get a good player back in the deal, or at least an interesting player that can be end of the bench and potentially get some spot minutes as needed, great. If not, you have the cap room, so you might as well use it. The other move that, I think is fairly likely is bring in some sort of backup guard, ball handler, initiator. I've brought up Micic from Charlotte before. I think that's if you can get him for a fairly low price, I don't think his asking price would be too much, like a second round pick or something. He's a second year player, but he's older. He was like the European kind of like Fontecchio, and he's been pretty good for Charlotte when LaMelo Ball has been injured or out. So I think a guy like that can just help steady the ship while Jaden Ivey's down and take some of the on-ball pressure off Marcus Sasser as well, I think would be good for this team for the immediate. But on top of that, I don't know if I'm packaging up like one of my young guys or one of my like Isaiah Stewart type pieces to put my just go all in for a Bradley Beal or a Zach LaVine. Like, I think getting a secondary scorer like bucket getter would be great for this team, but it just depends on the price, the commitment, and the fit. So honestly, although it's not like exciting, I think I'm mainly playing it safe over the deadline and just trying to get a little better and increase the stock in the draft cupboard around the margins.
I think where I'm falling on this is we're now only I think a couple weeks away from the deadline is I wouldn't want to make any moves that would be immediate fixes for the sake of fixing an immediate problem, if that makes sense. I would much rather have a focus towards the future, specifically this summer. I think that the team right now is showing that, like we've said before, if you put competent pieces around Cade Cunningham, he can get you a respectable amount of wins and possibly get you into a play-in or even playoff conversation, depending on how things shake out in that given year. I would hopefully want to upgrade over that level of competition the following season, and that starts as early as next year. So, the idea to me of just bringing in someone to handle more ball handling pressure just for the sake of it, because it's a problem right now, I wouldn't be super excited by it. Now, if it's someone who, let's say, is like, a Cole Anthony type of player, that caliber of player who, yes, you bring him in now and he fixes that need for an immediate ball handler off the bench. But when Jaden Ivey's healthy, Cole Anthony can play next to Ivey. You haven't really lost anything. There's a future role there. And in fact, it may actually be a comparable role to Malik Beasley, so maybe it makes it a little bit more comfortable to move on from him. So things like that, I think, are where more of my focus would be. That would be true of getting, if you wanted to go after a number 2 scorer or someone of that level. Like, I wouldn't want it to be a guard who can't play up a position, for example, because Jaden Ivey's going to be here next year and he's going to need to have a role. The one thing that I would be more open to is kind of clearing out that wing position. And I don't know exactly who that would be that gets moved. Maybe it's Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., Fontecchio. I don't know. But on the back stretch of this year, I would like to see a little bit more involvement for Ron Holland, knowing full well that maybe that results in less wins down the stretch. I'm comfortable with that. I think that's going to be valuable experience for him to get now. So that as well as a future forward mindset too. We want Ron Holland to develop this year so that next year he's more ready to go. So that would be something I'd look at. I don't know exactly what that would be in terms of player movement, but maybe you could get a pick for Fontecchio or something. Like, that would be something I'd look at.
Yeah. And I mean, this is in the weeds for sure, but I wonder if it is like if say the Pistons sent out Fontecchio for a pick, like you mentioned, would they have to quickly get above that salary floor again? Like after they made after they cut Paul Reed.
So. Yeah.
That's fun. But yeah, that's it. We'll see if that happens. I mean, I feel like just with the cap space they have, they're built to take in a player. But like you mentioned, if they have to, maybe it is someone that is just at the end of the bench. And they're kind of like James Wiseman was last year, just in whatever role that might be.
All right, let's get to a fun one here. This is from Beastman17. It says, Cade Cunningham or Anthony Edwards, who would you rather build your franchise around, knowing everything we know now? So back-to-back number 1 overall picks. Who would you rather have?
Yeah, it's such like an interesting argument because I think Ant is like 2 months older than Cade. Like, they're basically the same age. Man, I mean, it's tough because like I watch every game of Cade and not every game of Ant, but just like the playoff run they made, the Olympics. Like, I think they're both great options and they'd be pretty high up there. But I think I'd go with Cade, honestly, and I hope it's not recency bias or like Homer. And yeah, YouTube user says both. I'd definitely cop out and go with that answer as well. But yeah, I think Cade is more of like a two-way guy and everything, and Ant's ridiculous, and they're both just tremendous options. It's so hard to pick one, but I just love the way Cade plays, and I think he can really like manipulate defenses and really just like control the pace of the game, and he has that takeover ability, and Ant does too. I think it's just a little bit different. Like Cade can control the game to how he wants it to go, and when he's clicking, really like whatever he wants to work will work. And yeah, I think Cade just might be a little more like just an all-around guy compared to Ant, and Ant's like a different type of player, and he's already like proven himself in the playoffs to a degree, and been in the All-Star game and that stuff. But where the trajectory Cade's on right now, I think I'd take that over Ant, even though it's super close.
Let me just read off the stat line real quick, because I
It's
think
pretty
it's going to prove
close,
your
right?
point. Yeah, they are pretty close. So Anthony Edwards, 26 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, slashing 44, 43, 84 from the floor, 3-point line, and then free throw line, respectively. And then Cade Cunningham is, oh no, it's loading. Come back.
I got
You want
it.
to read it off?
Yeah, I was right there. So Cade this year is averaging 24.6 points a game, 9.4 assists, 6.5 rebounds, 1.8 stocks. He's shooting 37.1% from 3 on 6.4 attempts per game, 49.6% from the field, and 81.4 from the line on 4.5 attempts a game.
So I think the difference is the level that Cade can get everyone else involved in the game. And we saw that when the Pistons and the Wolves played. Anthony Edwards had a ridiculous scoring night. And I do think that Anthony Edwards is a better scorer, a more talented scorer. He's more athletic. He can get to the rim. He's a better shooter. In terms of putting the ball in the basket, you'd take Anthony Edwards over Cade Cunningham, I think 10 times out of 10. But the reality is that, Cade's only averaging 2 points less per game. The efficiency numbers are very close. In terms of effective field goal percentage, it's only 2.5 points different, right? With Anthony Edwards right around 53 and Cade at 51.5. And the difference in assists means that in terms of points generated per game, Cade actually outpaces Anthony Edwards by 8. Because Cade's at 9 in assists, Anthony Edwards at 4. Conservatively, you say that that's 2 points per assist, right? And then the 2-point difference in points per game margin. So, look, I think that Cade is the better guy to build everything around because you can use him as a hub, whereas certainly Anthony Edwards is a better number one option, better number one scorer, right? But I just don't think that the impact that he has on the rest of the team is nearly as significant. I think it's close. I'm with YouTube user. They'd be great together. It'd be a lot of fun. That'd be a lot of fun having them together.
Yeah, it would be a fun, like, I think one thing that's come out at least more into the limelight with this stretch that Cade's on is like how competitive he is. So that backcourt of Cade and Ant, like, you wouldn't want to mess with that. Like, we'd get some funny clips from that of them just like jawing at the other team, because love that about Ant, and now like love that about Cade, and how you're like seeing that more. It's sticking out more. So yeah, that would be so fun.
Mimsy313 brings up an interesting thought. It says, as part of this, that the team is built more for Cade than the Wolves are built for Anthony Edwards. Would love to get your thoughts on that, but I don't think this team is really built for Cade Cunningham all that well. So my answer to this is still no.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because last year, like, the roster was just not good, to put it lightly, and you see what a few strong acquisitions do. But yeah, I think it's weird because the Wolves like went and made the moves that they did, and they like took them into a different spot, and then they have made some questionable moves as well. So like, I think, and you can piece things together around both of them, I think. But when your lead guy, like, they need spacing, they need defenders around them. And with Minnesota, it's kind of interesting because you don't have Cat there anymore, but you had this two big lineup before that. You have a defensive player in the year and just like a really good defensive base alongside what Ant gives you on offense. I don't think Cade really has that right now, but it's definitely like playing a bit to his strengths more. So yeah, the Wolves are just such a weird one to go and look at.
Yeah, they are. They really are. And someone in the chat brought up the CBA and how that's all. I mean, that's exactly what's going on in Minnesota, right? So
Yeah.
let's go to this was an interesting one. With Cade being a near lock to make the All-Star game, and I agree with that. I think you agree with that too. He's starting to get more All-NBA buzz. So Gregory 1998 says, could you select your All-NBA teams right now? And I have to say this is an incredibly difficult question because of that 65 game minimum rule and who's in and who's out for all of that stuff. But take a stab however you would like.
Yeah. So I think where I initially went with this, and I think like Wes, you bring up, it's hard to put together 15 names right now when you don't know who everyone is going to be eligible. I think the big ones that might and probably will miss it already are Embiid and Luka Doncic. But so all NBA teams are positionless now. And I think the interesting thing is that the NBA releases their MVP ladder on their website. They update it every couple weeks, I think. And Cade has been number 9 in the 10-person MVP ladder for the past 2 times. They just released a new one today as we're recording this on Friday. So, hey, if he's at that, like top 10, like that's all NBA right there. And I just think that the Pistons have to keep playing. They at least have to make the play in. And I mean, if they can go at this pace, they just went into the 6th spot in the Eastern Conference. Like if they can keep up with that, certainly. I don't think, like if we're talking every all NBA team, I think there's definitely a spot for Cade right now if things continue the way that they're going and the team as a whole doesn't totally drop off. If we're just talking first team, I think that likely won't happen but you never know because I mean first team gets filled up so quickly. Like you have Shea, Jokic, Giannis, and then like Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, whoever you want to put there, and then it's gone like that. And we haven't even talked about Wemby yet. So I think Cade is playing like an all NBA player right now. And I think the way that the team is performing as well backs him up to get there. And yeah, YouTube user says Cade will be 3rd team if it happens. I think that's fair. And I mean, I would be thrilled with that for Cade. And I think it's just some good like proof to that he is the guy, like we all know he is, and what the team is doing. You can consistently build off that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't really want to pick out the All NBA awards myself at this point. Look, I really just think it's too early. That injury limiter, right? The 65 game minimum is very restrictive. I mean, shoot, Cade might not even make it. You know, knock on wood here. I'm knocking on my desk on my end, but we don't know what's going to happen down the stretch. So I'm with YouTube users though. I think that it'll be if it happens. And it very well may because of all of these injuries, right? Joel, Luka, you keep going down the line. I think it kind of pushes Cade up, and I could certainly see all NBA 3rd team. To me, Cade right now is right around a top 20 player, you know, give or take 1 or 2. He's in that range. So that is close enough to then, if enough guys get hurt and don't meet the threshold, to kick you up into all NBA 3rd team. And of course he can go much higher than that in the future too. I think that's all on the table, but it's going to be fun if he keeps playing like this and the team keeps winning. I mean, he could make a really strong argument for even higher than third team, to be honest. So it depends on how the rest of the season goes. A YouTube user had a really fun question here. Which team gets better? This is going back to our
The
conversation
Wolves.
about Ant Edwards or Cade Cunningham. But which team gets better if you trade Tobias Harris for Julius Randle?
I think the Wolves right now. Like, yeah, I think it would be the Wolves. I think you put Julius Randle on the Pistons, you just get more questions, honestly. So yeah, I think the Wolves, just in terms of right now, benefit from in the immediate future from that trade.
I'm leaning the Pistons actually for a very specific reason, but I want to look at the stat real quickly. Yeah. Okay. So the Pistons really need another bucket getter right now.
Mm-hmm.
They do. And Tobias Harris is filling in admirably. I think he's been very impactful and he's stepped it up his scoring load since Jaden Ivey went down. But on the season, he's at 13.6 rebounds, 2.5 assists, shooting only 35% from three. These are the points numbers. That's below his career number at this point. And, you hope that maybe that ticks upwards here as the year progresses. But everything else, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, it's pretty close to what he's averaged for his career. Give or take a couple of percentage points. Julius Randle right now is averaging, oh man, my computer is really hating me right now. It's not loading up again.
Mine is.
Can you pull it up?
We'll
see who wins.
Really
we'll edit this out. We will edit this out on the podcast. So
I think I'm
stick through.
I think I'm gonna beat you. Yeah, Julius Randle is he's averaging 18.9 points a game, 4.5 assists, 0.9 stocks, 7.3 rebounds, 33% from three on 4.5 attempts a game, 53% from the field, and 81% from the line on just above 5 attempts a game.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to point out because look, and YouTube user brings it up, right? Randle has this perception as being just a pure volume scorer. And look, to some extent, that's true. To some extent, it's true that he is a volume scorer, but he's better from the floor than Tobias Harris. He is only 2 percentage points worse from three than Tobias Harris, and he's averaging 5 more points per game, about the same number of assists, and a couple more rebounds per game. Like, Julius Randle, I think, would probably require, or at least would make the conversation about starting Isaiah Stewart over Jalen Duren more not inevitable, but you'd maybe want to have that thought a little bit just with the drop off of 3-point shooting, but it's not as significant as I think it gets made out to be. So I think that if you could add a guy like Randle and you just do that 1-for-1 swap and you get a true secondary scorer who's going to take that level of attention from the defense, he can handle the ball a little bit. He can play make out of the post. Like, you could use him to bring the ball up the floor. So that might take pressure off Cade too as a ball handler. And then like his efficiency numbers are really not worse than Tobias Harris. This is interesting. So this is something I've thought of too. YouTube user says maybe start him at the 5. I wouldn't hate it. I've actually brought that up before. Yeah, with Ausar at the 4. And then maybe you bring up another shooter there at the 3 or the 2, depending on where you want to put THJ. I'd be for that. I really would. I think that'd be fun. Maybe not at the start, but as like a death, quote unquote, lineup to throw back to those Warriors days. Right. Yeah. I think it'd be fun. I think the Pistons get better.
Yeah. No, that's a fair answer too. I mean, it's interesting because when the Pistons needing like a secondary scorer, I always think of that like off guard and like the Zach LaVine mold kind of in that, but it really could be all over the place. Like, Randle's an interesting one. I mainly just think the Wolves have a lot of problems right now, and but just not having Julius Randle might help some of that. So,
and that's true too. I don't know. Have we talked ourselves into this being a win-win, oddly enough, just in
Yeah,
terms of production on
I
the
think we're
floor?
getting somewhere.
Maybe this is a framework that YouTube user brings up that the GM should explore. Although I don't know, because Randall's like the personality, you'd want to make sure that is a really good fit in the locker room.
Yeah.
Regardless, El Blues says, "What's up, guys? Fun time to be a Pistons fan." So absolutely.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
close on this one, Blake. This was from last week and we didn't get to it, but this is our guy Art Vandalay 81. He asked a question about where we thought Cade Cunningham's ceiling was. So this was a follow-up question. And he says, what about any of the other core players? What do we think that their ceiling is right now? So looking at Jaden Ivey, Ausar Thompson, and Ron Holland. So let's just focus on those three. What's their ceiling?
Yeah, it's a it's a great question, but a tough one because it's so like yeah, like philosophical. I think we were talking last week, Wes, about where like where even is Cade's ceiling? Like how do you define that right now? But that's what makes it great to talk about. I think if I had to rank them, and I'll go into each of them specifically, I think Ron has the highest ceiling, and then seconded by Ivy, and then Ausar. I think Ausar still has a super high ceiling. I just think that he might play a specific role as a defender, play finisher. Maybe you can use him in interesting ways in different screening actions, like you were talking about earlier, Wes. But I just don't I see him as Ausar as being a really useful player for any team, really. I just don't think he'll ever be your first, second, or even third option offensively, which makes him play a very specific role, an important one. But I just think the other two guys have more, I don't know if star power is the right word, but ways to put the ball in the hoop. And Ivy, he can just the way he can get to the rim and then finish at the rim at that is pretty special. I think we've saw in the games that Jaden Ivey has played this year how the pairing of him and Cade Cunningham can work, which has made me more optimistic about that, honestly, than I was coming into the season. The injury, although it stinks, I'm not concerned about it in the long term. That doesn't make me take anything away off of what I think Ivy could become. And then Ron Holland, I didn't think he hasn't figured it all out by any means, but I was not expecting him to provide the impact in his minutes that we've seen him coming into the season. I think his shots look pretty good too. You've just seen flashes of him maybe potentially being able to grow into that number 2 scorer next to Cade, and then pair that with everything he can do on defense. And not a perfect defensive prospect by any means, but he competes. He's definitely a culture piece too. So I just think if Ron was a swing for the fences when Langdon picked him on draft night, I think he's still a swing for the fences, but we've seen flashes of him at the NBA level. And I think he has the most room to grow. Maybe that's cheating a little bit because he's the youngest prospect, but I think he could potentially be a co-star next to Cade. Maybe not for a while, but I think that could happen. So yeah, just really bullish on Ron's future overall.
I am too. I think ranking these three the way that you did it brings up something I don't know, kind of interesting with how this ceiling discussion evolves over time, right? Because look, I'm right there with you with the Ausar Thompson. I think I'm at the point where I'd be pretty surprised if he ever averaged more than 15 or 16 points per game. And that's not a detriment to him. I think he's going to be an incredible player and an incredible piece for this team. What he can bring defensively, what he can bring is kind of a connective passer in the half court and as a scorer in transition, things like that, I think are really, really valuable and worth investing in. So he's a guy I personally very bullish on Ausar Thompson and the role that he can have next to Cade Cunningham as maybe a 4th or 5th option on offense, but just an incredible impact defender out as a forward. So That he would be either second or third, right, for me in that list. Jaden Ivey, as we've gotten to see more of him, I think that the future gets more exciting with Jaden Ivey because it looks a lot closer and it's a lot more material. But we have learned a lot about Jaden Ivey. I don't think he's a 30 points a night guy at any point in the future. I don't even know if he really wants to be that kind of guy. A name that continues to come up to mind for me watching Ivey this year before he got hurt was kind of like Baron Davis, like just a physical big combo guard who scores, but Davis never really got above 21 or 22 a night. Like that might be a cap on Jaden Ivey too and it's not a detriment, right? It's not a detriment. That's still a really, really good player, but it's just as we continue to see more of these guys and we start to assess and see more of the limitations that they have and the players that they are, then the ceiling starts to drop a little bit. Now, why I find this so interesting is because watching Ron Holland this year, there's not a limiter.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen a limiter yet. Like with Ausar Thompson, a big limiter on him being a scorer in the half court is that he's very robotic with the ball in his hands. He's not a very fluid mover, and he just lacks touch around the rim. So even on the instances where he can get himself into the right spot with a live dribble, which are not all that often, again, not a detriment to him. I'm just critiquing a very specific weakness or a limitation that he has. But so in those instances where he gets to the right spot, he doesn't have the bag around the rim to make the finish, and then he doesn't have the touch or he doesn't have the bag to get the ball up, and he doesn't have the touch to then make it once the shot goes up. You compare that to what you saw from Amen Thompson against the Rockets, right? Very, very different. He does have those things, and that's why his ceiling as a scorer is a little bit higher. Ron Holland doesn't have that limitation. Yeah, that handle's loose, but it's fluid. He creates space. He made someone fall against the Hawks, and it was what he did afterwards was ugly, but he still did it, right? He still did the thing. So he's got that. His touch around the rim is fantastic. The creativity of his finishes has surprised me pretty often so far this year. I think his movement getting downhill has been impressive. You want to talk about that jump shot? The form looks good. YouTube user brings up that he's got to fix his lower half. I agree. His footwork goes all over the place. And if you want to watch someone on the Pistons, by the way, that just has incredibly beautiful footwork on their jump shot, just watch Malik Beasley. Oh my Lord, it is picture perfect. Teach tape every single time. Makes me giddy when I see him coming off a curl. But regardless, so that's Ron Holland. The form looks good. It's something to fix, right? The footwork's something to fix, but the form still looks really good. So the basis is there. You wouldn't say that jump shot's a limitation. His defense has been fantastic for a rookie. He's not limited on that end either. Like usually when we see more of a player like Ausar, like Ivey, like any other prospect, those limitations that feel like hard caps become so much more clear. And I just haven't found that yet with Ron Holland. So I'm bullish too.
Yeah.
He's got the most room, but he hasn't found anything that keeps him from it yet.
Yeah. The thing was the shot, and that's looked better than expected, honestly. And like the other big thing, like coming out of his pre-draft season was the decision making, the turnovers. And I think he's just in a much better situation where he's not just being thrown to the wolves and having a ton of those like the team he was playing for, G League Ignite, didn't have a point guard. So that's why it was so interesting. And maybe he fell on draft boards a little bit. Like a lot of people had him up there, and a lot of people didn't, and a lot of people didn't see it. So yeah, I think it's a great situation, like playing on a team that is competing like this and carving out this important role for himself, because it can only grow. Like I rewatched the Rockets game today, and they flashed to the Rockets bench, and I saw like Reed Shepherd there, and like Houston's a different situation, but I was like, how much do you think Reed Shepherd would love to be in Ron Holland's shoes right now on this Pistons team that's competing and not at the level that Houston is, but carving a role and has like opportunities for these young players. So yeah, I mean, I think it was a great pick. It was still definitely a swing. It was a risky pick, but I think it has the highest. It has a good chance of like paying off right now if it continues on this path.
I think maybe this is exaggerating. I don't think it's exaggerating. I think we've learned two things that are hard caps on what Ron Holland can do in the future. He can't be a point guard, and he might struggle if you have him guard fours. I got nothing else.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes he has I worry about him getting kicked out of games, getting like technicals and stuff, but
you live with that.
No,
that's not a skill limiter.
I love that about him. Yeah, it's just you're trying to like find things to pick apart, and there's like a ton you can do with like young players, especially rookies, but with Ron, it's like, you can, like, there's been enough flashes where you can just see him, it all coming together. Not saying it will, it very well might not, but it very well might as well.
That's the flip side of all this, right? Because as exciting as it is to look at a guy and go, ball of clay, no limitations, he, so exciting. Can he do it though?
I think it's a good situation for him to do it though. Like,
I think so too.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of worse situations for Ron Holland to be in right now. I think he was an important, like the fit was extra important with him coming into this draft. And like, I'll be honest, I questioned the fit with the Pistons just because there was so much unknown coming into the season with this team. But like, it's right now, like, just change that, and I think it's a pretty good situation for him.
Let's I want to read off this comment here, and then we'll close on one thing before we get out of here today. But Mega Hustler in the comments says that Jaden Ivey's game kind of reminds him of Monte Ellis. That's a good call. I think that's a good one for Jaden. What is
about
the ranking,
Malik Monk? Like, do you see it?
I've gone back and forth.
Yeah, like I feel like Monk gets like he shot out of his mind for a few years, but I think like the past few seasons at Sacramento, and I mean Monk's come off the bench, like who knows what Ivey will be long term, but sometimes I think about that one and I'm like, what if Jaden Ivey's just Malik Monk?
The thing that holds me back from making the comparison, and actually holds me back from making the Monte Ellis comparison too, is just Monk is wired to get buckets, and Jaden Ivey in no point of the past 2.5 years has been wired to get buckets. To me, he loves getting the guys involved and making those crazy highlight passes. Leandro Barbosa is a deep cut.
That's a great one.
That is a deep cut, and it's actually a pretty good one, I have to say. YouTube views are bringing up Barbosa. I love it. All right, let's close on this. You started it, so let's finish it. Rank the three in terms of ceiling: Ivey, Ausar, Ron Holland. How would you rank them? I can go first if you would like.
Well, no, I think I might already tease mine. So mine's Ron, Ivey, Ausar.
I think I would say the exact same, though flipping Ausar and Ivey, I would understand.
Yeah, me too. That was almost my shout out to Mega Hustler for calling out Leandro Barbosa as well. Or initially, but and my gut told me to put Ausar second, but then I was like, am I just defaulting to that because that's like ranking them by their draft year? And I actually think like I stand by just the role thing with Ausar. I think Jaden, like you said, has more room to grow into a secondary or tertiary scorer, where I don't really see that with Ausar. Like, I don't know if he's ever going to be a huge offensive piece of any team's game, which is fine because he plays an important role as well.
Yeah, and just a quick note. I think this is our guy Keith Black Trudeau has brought this up on Twitter a couple times, but I think I would completely understand any fan that says, as a trio of Cade, Ron Holland, and Ausar Thompson, that is the group to build around.
Yeah.
And that you would want the other two positions in the rest of the roster to fill in and fit really well with that. Because in terms of, you mentioned the role that the guys would play and the value that would be. Like, I think that in pure ceiling, Ivey probably higher than Ausar Thompson, but the type of player that Ausar Thompson could be may just be a little bit more valuable. So really trying to focus on those three guys, Cade, Ausar, Ron Holland, I do think that would make quite a bit of sense.
Me too.
But we can leave it there.
Yeah, no, that was a great question. So shout out to Art Vandalay for that one. Really enjoyed it, and shout out to everyone for joining. Like Wes mentioned at the top, if you guys could hit like, subscribe to the Detroit Bad Boys channel on YouTube, we'd really appreciate it. It really helps us out. Reminder that if you want to call in and ask a question, you can hear your voice on the show. Our phone line is at 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys again for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.